Hello, my name is Father Lawrence Jagdfeld. I am a Franciscan friar of Sacred Heart Province, headquartered in St. Louis, Missouri, and I am also the administrator of CUSA, an apostolate of persons with chronic illness and/or disability. We have reached the 19th Sunday in Ordinary Time, and just as we have been doing for the last few weeks, we will be continuing to hear Jesus as he makes his way to Jerusalem. In this particular gospel passage, St. Luke lumps together a number of sayings, a number of quotations that he has taken from other sources, and just gives them to us one after the other. And so we can find this somewhat disconcerting because there doesn't seem to be, and I want to emphasize here, there doesn't seem to be a thread that goes through all of them. So Jesus said to his disciples, "Do not be afraid any longer, little flock, for your Father is pleased to give you the kingdom. Sell your belongings and give alms. Provide money bags for yourselves that do not wear out, an inexhaustible treasure in heaven that no thief can reach nor moth destroy. For where your treasure is, there also will your heart be. Gird your loins and light your lamps, and be like servants who await their master's return from a wedding, ready to open immediately when he comes and knocks. Blessed are those servants whom the master finds vigilant on his arrival. Amen, I say to you, he will gird himself, have them recline at table, and proceed to wait on them. And should he come in the second or third watch and find them prepared in this way, blessed are those servants. Be sure of this, if the master of the house had known the hour when the thief was coming, he would not have let his house be broken into. You also must be prepared, for at an hour you do not expect the Son of Man will come." Then Peter said, "Lord, is this parable meant for us or for everyone?" And the Lord replied, "Who then is the faithful and prudent steward, whom the master will put in charge of his servants, to distribute the food allowance at the proper time? Blessed is that servant whom his master on arrival finds doing so. Truly I say to you, the master will put the servant in charge of all his property. But if that servant says to himself, 'My master is delayed in coming,' and begins to beat the men servants and maid servants, to eat and drink and get drunk, then that servant's master will come on an unexpected day and at an unknown hour, and will punish the servant severely, and assign him a place with the unfaithful. That servant who knew his master's will, but did not make preparations, nor set in accord with his will, shall be beaten severely. And the servant who was ignorant of his master's will, but acted in a way deserving of a severe beating, shall be beaten only lightly. Much will be required of the person entrusted with much, and still more will be demanded of the person entrusted with more." So as I said at the outset, we have a collection of sayings, a collection of quotations obviously from Jesus, that have been recorded in several of the Gospels. Luke seems to lump them all together. And in the middle of all of this, Peter asks the question, "Lord, is this parable meant for us?" What parable is Peter talking about? Well, in fact, he's talking about the parable that we heard last week. Once again, we have to remember that when we read the Gospels piecemeal, as we do every Sunday, we tend sometimes to forget that this is one long, continuous narrative. And so the sayings and the parables that have been given to us over the past few Sundays are very much connected to the sayings that we hear today. So what is it that we are to take away from all of this? Well, first of all, and I don't want to get too technical here, but I'd like to give you a little background. When the Gospels were composed, we have to remember that there are three distinct periods in their composition. First of all, there is Jesus himself, walking along the road to Jerusalem, speaking to his disciples. Then after that, there comes the period that we know of as the Apostolic Era, in which the 12 apostles, recorded in the Acts of the Apostles, they continue the preaching. Jesus is no longer on the scene, but the apostles continue preaching. Only after this period is completed do we finally get to the point where the evangelists begin to put pen to parchment and begin to record the Gospels. So as you can well imagine, things get a little bit changed as time passes, and Luke's Gospel is at least a full 50 or 55 years after Jesus' return to the Father. So maybe what we hear in today's Gospel, perhaps, is Luke's take on things. Like all of the disciples, Luke is waiting for Jesus to return. And his concern about the return of Jesus invades these sayings that Jesus gives us and puts them in the context of the future. The master is away, and while the master's away, the cat is at play, or the mice are at play. When the cat's away, the mice are at play. Well, they are expecting Jesus to return. And so Luke puts all of these sayings in the context of being vigilant, being awake, being aware of the fact that Jesus could return at any moment. Here we are, some 2,000 years later, and we're still waiting. And unfortunately, I don't think we are as vigilant as we need to be. I think that we need to, once again, be aware of the fact that our time on this earth is limited. Whether it is our own personal lives or whether it is the life of the world itself, we don't know how much longer this is going on. Jesus is telling us here that we need to place our priorities, that we need to place our values on the things that really matter. We need, in fact, not to store up treasure here on earth, but rather to store up treasure which neither thief can steal nor moth can destroy. And that treasure can only be gathered, that treasure can only be earned through a life of fidelity to the gospel, a life of fidelity to Jesus himself, a life of fidelity to prayer, remembering that all of the gifts that we have come from God's generosity. So all of these sayings really point us to the same truth, that we need to be people who are aware of the fact that Jesus will come again, and we need to be ready. That spirit of readiness, that spirit of being awake, is not something new. We have heard it not only in the Gospels, but even William Shakespeare, in his great play, Hamlet, tells us the readiness is all. For more information about CUSA, please visit our website at www.cuson.org or visit us on Facebook.